Hello people, it's Mark from Kharischangeworks, and as you can see, I've got Lara with me again today. Guys, this one I want to talk about with Lara and discuss it just like yesterday's video on the law of sowing and reaping. But I want to expand it a little bit and look at the importance of why we have to be so mindful of our behavior, our intentions, when we do or don't do what we do or don't do. And just like yesterday, I want this to be more of a balanced approach where I've got my thoughts and Lara might have different thoughts, therefore bringing a nice balance in this little series, because I really believe that if we get our heart attitudes right, what's being discussed here and the importance of it will revolutionize your future in terms of your outcome. I think about the grief series that me and Lara did only very, very recently. And that in many ways has caused me to consider this bit that we're doing now. So let's start this little debate. Before we do, please do all the YouTube admin, the old like, the share, the subscribe. When you hit the bell, there's a little section that's called all. Pick that way you will be notified of every video that we upload on a day-to-day basis. Please involve yourself in the comments or get involved in the social media platforms. Let's debate this thing, because I really believe that as we become more aware of where we stand in the world as far as this sowing and reaping bit is concerned, we're going to make a couple of videos on this. I really believe that our future, in terms of our outcome and the pain and the joy, we're sowing these seeds as a harvest for next year, 5 years' time, and 10 years' time. But we need to make sure that the seeds we sow now are seeds that's going to produce something useful, positive, helpful, those kind of things. And let's vet out the negative. Let's vet them out, because they're only going to bring some kind of calamity in one way or another. And this channel is all about helping people go from calamity to some kind of prosperity, pain to healing, darkness to light, whatever, from a negative to a positive. That's the whole ethos of why Lara and I started this channel. So, hi Lara.
Hi Mark.
Right. Sowing and reaping. You and I are two folks who have a very similar spirit in terms of people and spirituality. We've discussed this for many years now. Sowing and reaping. What goes around comes around. What I want to discuss with you now, for the benefit of those who are going to hear this video and watch it, why is it so important in your mind that we ought to be mindful of that we sow in reference to where we are as people when we do our sowing?
I think it's important to check what your intention is. I mean, we've dealt with narcs at length, and you and I both have our own experiences with narcs, but narcs always have a hidden agenda, and you've always got to sidestep and guess what they're up to. And a lot of the time, if you're coming out of a situation like that, people come to you and they'll do something, and your automatic reaction will not necessarily be the true reaction to what they're actually meaning. So you can misinterpret it. And a lot of the time, people react out of pain. So if somebody comes up to you and you say a little comment and they all of a sudden hit the roof, and you going, oh my word, what just happened? You might not be aware of their husband dying or their dog dying or something like that that has gone on in their lives, but you're getting the brunt of it. And the way you respond is going to have a boomerang effect on you, but you're not knowing of what it is. So it's best to rather just err on the cautious instead of just reacting back and causing a huge total blowout between two people, instead of saying, okay, maybe there's something behind this, let's take a gentler approach.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes, it's easy for me to say I agree with you, but here's the thing, I agree with you. You see, what I've noticed in a previous job is the specific authority that I worked for at the time. I shan't name them because for whatever reason, they were more concerned on what happened then. They weren't interested in the story that actually led up to the decisions that were made for those actions to take place that resulted in the authority being contacted. They did not pay any attention to the story up until that point. To them, it's irrelevant.
Yes.
So when someone comes and bashes a door down or swears at you, or whatever the case might be, let's just use that as an example. If that particular authority was contacted at that point in time, they would only deal with the fact that the door was kicked in, or the car was scratched, or whatever the case might be, or some kind of verbal abuse exchange taking place. They would only deal with that, but not the other stuff. And I agree with you that when we see people and we see them grumpy, or we see them behaving angrily, but 2 weeks ago when we saw them, they were completely different. They were maybe a little bit more chirpy, happy. Now, to my mind, we should have that level of acuteness that says, 2 weeks ago they were not like this. What's happened in the meantime? But as a society, I believe that we've been separated from that level of awareness, that we don't consider what's happened in between. We are so programmed to focus on, he's just grumpy, I've just said hello to him or her, and instead of being their normal friendly self, they growled at me. What an idiot. We don't consider. I think what you're saying in terms of we have to err on the side of caution, so to speak, I think that's really, really important. Can I just give you an example of what I think happens in terms of what we're talking about here?
Yeah.
You're an administrator, so you'll appreciate this probably far more than I would ever do. When the boss man, boss woman comes in and calls a meeting, for you as the administrator or a secretary or a PA or something like that, to my mind, when I was in a managerial role, that person would have notepad and pen. Yes?
Yeah.
And they would take minutes and record what was said in that meeting as an accurate reflection of topics discussed. I want us to consider for a minute, because we're talking about a universal law, what you say you're going to reap, what goes around comes around, boomerang effect, it's going to come back. I want us to consider that the universe, God, whatever, that there are two levels of secretaries. two levels of scribes, note takers, that are involved in everything that we as people do. So for the sake of the argument, let's pretend that there are 100 billion of these scribes, these secretaries. 50 billion of them are your basic secretary. Okay? And those people take note of, if anybody there has looked at NLP, they will understand the what. What's going on, what's not going on. These baseline beginner secretaries, they take note of what?
Yes.
Okay. The other 50 billion secretaries, through experience and progression and training, they become principal secretaries. They've learned to listen with a different kind of ear. Their training has, dare I say, for the sake of the metaphor, they've learned extrasensory abilities.
Okay.
And they have abilities that look at and understand the why. Let's go back to your example. Why are they behaving like this? And we need to be aware of how we react to that what we are being stimulated by through their behavior, their words, whatever the case might be. So you get these two levels, you get your baseline and then you get your principal secretaries. And the universe is constantly in a meeting. Where these two secretaries on their different pay scale with their unique abilities are consistently making notes. But you've got two assigned to each person. A standard secretary and a principal secretary. Okay, so you're surrounded by two secretaries all the time. And what we do, the actions, the behaviors, is recorded by the standard secretary. What I want people to understand is the principal secretary. They look at intention, like what you've mentioned. They look at attitude. They look at motivation. They look at your heart. They look at your the reasons behind, the why.
Yes.
Okay. And they scribe that. And then let's pretend that all of that is then submitted to the editor. Okay, as if we are now working at a news press. The principal secretary's notes, the minutes that they make, are going to be the headlines, the front page news, the important stuff, the urgent stuff, the things that catches the eye. And the standard secretary, their stuff is sort of towards the end, the lesser important stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Are you with me?
Yes.
And when it comes down to the what goes around, the scribing, when that comes around, when that newspaper article is now presented to you, and you now have to read your own behavior, your own attitudes, your own intentions. When you read that script that was taken by the secretaries of their unique abilities that surround you and follow you around, I believe it is then that we go, where did this come from? I never realized, geez, if I knew that this was going to happen, I would never have done it.
Yeah.
And then people are filled with shame and guilt, embarrassment, anger. Because like we said yesterday, there's that spotlight now that's being shone. What you've done. Albeit that lamp is also shining, but that LED floodlight that is now shining is shining on the headlines, shining on the intentions, shining on your spirit. That is, dare I say, cast to the world, to the universe. That says, by the way, folks, pay attention to this. And when we read that article and we become embarrassed by our own behavior, what I want people to understand that that's the reason why we need to be so conscious of when we interact with people. That harvest will always take place.
Correct.
As a friend of mine said, the day you plant the seed is not the day you pick the fruit.
Correct.
Yeah. And folks, I want you to imagine with me that you've got these two secretaries following you around. One takes the headline news, the headline information, the important stuff, front page news material. The other one just fills the gaps.
Correct.
Yeah. And when we go about our day-to-day business, whether it is how you interact with yourself, how you interact with your friends and your family, how you interact with the society, cluster groups that you're involved in, or whether how you interact with the universe and with the creator. It doesn't matter. Your intentions is also recorded. And my friend, when that boomerang comes back and that newspaper reel is handed over to you for you to read about you, you can't blame the minute taker. You can't say to the secretary, you've used the wrong color pen. The paper isn't white enough. Because ultimately, it's been recorded by experts.
Correct.
They don't make mistakes because they have been employed by the ultimate expert, the creator. And my friend, what I want to say to you now is like what we said in the beginning. We need to, when we sow this seed of behavior, when we sow our seed in terms of who we are as people congruently within ourselves, the real us, the DNA us, that is what's being recorded. The what is important, how we behave is important. But let me tell you now, the reasons why we behave in the way that we behave, that's even more so.
Correct.
Yes? Now, what can we say to these folks, Lara, that might help us to convey a message of hope as far as this particular thing is concerned? I've got a couple of thoughts. I've just thought about it while we were talking here. Have you got some advice for some of these precious people?
I think it is just to be careful what you say before you react. Because a lot of the time, when two people react out of pain, you're going to have an explosive situation. So that's not a good thing either. And being in the world we're in with lockdown and everything, everybody is not in a good space. COVID has affected every single person in this world in some way, and it's not a good way. And I think we need to be patient. We need to be very alert of people around us, how they're reacting, how they're not reacting. I think we need to just notice things more. Don't just take things for granted. think before, if somebody is acting different, like you said earlier, think that something might have happened. A lot of people are private people. They might not always announce it and might not be in headlights above their heads. But just have a heart, have grace, and just think about it before you do or say anything in a situation.
Yes, totally agree. What I would add to that is, when something's bad happened to us, it doesn't matter what it is, loss of a job, lost your house, those kind of things, we need to also be aware that when we are feeling not our normal self, how would we want other people to interact with us?
Correct.
We would want them to be sympathetic, be empathetic, be understanding, be caring, be a little bit more gentle.
Correct.
And if we can have that as our starting line, oh, my day started off a little bit poor. I'm in a grumpy mood because I've had disturbed sleep, or I didn't sleep at all, or whatever the case might be. If we are aware about how we want to be treated when we are not feeling fantastic, if we have a similar attitude to other people might have experienced the same thing, I reckon we are then on the road to avoiding the karma effect of when that script is presented. Oh, they were conscientious, but they forgot, or whatever is recorded. They tried.
Yes.
They did their best.
Yeah.
I want people to understand that both sides have got a 100% level of responsibility.
Correct.
To be aware. Now, the person in pain, the person who's the projector of the start of the conversation, maybe they are reacting out of pain, tiredness, anger, whatever the case might be, but it's the recipient who then reacts back. Onus. The onus is there.
I think the bottom line is that old saying, treat others how you would want to be treated, regardless.
Yes.
Regardless what's going on in your life, be the better person.
Yes. I think that's good advice. Okay, folks. This is a difficult one, because emotions are liquid. They're very fluid. We can't gauge what's going to take place in the next 20 seconds. But I'm going to say our encouragement is simply this. Be mindful that things can change in an instant. And there are people who will say absolutely nothing, because they might be private, they might be in that much pain or even guilt that they cannot express how they feel. They might fumble over their words. They might not even know where to start. But our responsibility lies in how we treat them. Is vitally important, because that is an action that we choose, that is being recorded by 2 secretaries. And ultimately, you will be rewarded appropriately for that choice that you've made. So choose well. Choose well. Because when you're in that situation where you're the one that needs a little bit of understanding, where you want a bit of love, where you want a bit of grace, where you need a bit of someone's time where they understand or try to understand where you are coming from. Now we're playing a game of fairness, because that's what they also want. Remember, what we do, what we don't do, what we say, what we don't say, these choices that we make is a decision based on who we are. That action is recorded. The intention is also recorded. And that is a seed that is going to produce a harvest in the future at some point. Let us plant seeds in our lives and that in the lives of others that produces hope and love and care, unity, and all these positive things that bring about a fulfillment in society where we become one and stronger and more united. Because ultimately, if we haven't got others who we can rely on when times are good, we will need them when times are a little bit tough. And it might then be that you go, where's all my friends?
Correct.
Then you are barely no mates because you've pushed them away through the seed that you have sown, through the choices that we've made.
Correct.
Choose well, choose well, choose well. And this is
Totally agree.
Yeah, this is what I really believe is important in where we are in society today, politically, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, socially. And I also say that, and I spoke to one of my friends about this only yesterday, that the COVID lockdown phase of the world where we are now has squeezed society so much that these kind of behaviors are now being exposed. I mean, we spoke about this only yesterday to some degree. And this exposure of behaviors, this exposure of attitudes is now highlighted, as far as I can see, how far deteriorated society has become through ill programming, through an evil agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you now, when the harvest comes, because there will be a harvest, I hope that for you, your personal individual harvest is going to be plentiful.
Mm-hmm.
Because it will only be that of what you've sown. You can't, like I said yesterday, you can't plant an apple seed and expect a banana to come up. It just doesn't work like that. The good book talks about each will produce after its own. It's quite simple. And what we say, what we think, how we behave, will produce after its own.
Right.
Therefore, make sure that that what you have in your heart, that what you have in your spirit, that what you have in your mind is there for the benefit, the ecology of mankind, that is positive. Then your harvest is going to be plentiful. It's going to be full of riches compared to whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my heart, Lara's heart's the same. That's why we join forces on this channel, is for people to have riches that money necessarily cannot buy, because that's where value lies. And we want people to realize, man, you don't have to have a big house, a big car, a big boat. You don't need that to be rich. You need a good heart to be rich. You need to have a good mind. You need to have a good spirit. Then you are ultimately rich.
Mm-hmm.
And how you treat people, your reward will be great. Because the seed is being sown, and when that harvest comes, you might be surprised at what you have received. It might blow your mind. Or you might go, I expected more. And that's that squeezing effect that will reveal the attitudes and the motive in your spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So change while we can. Change while we can. Change where you must. As a friend of mine said yesterday, And I'm going to make a video on this because it's really important. Unless you change the road that you're on, you'll end up where you're going.
Yes.
That's K, by the way.
Mhm.
It's like, wow. It completely parted my hair. If I had hair gel in my hair, I would have had a Mohican as far as that profound wisdom was concerned.
Yes.
So there you go, my folks. Please. It's important. I would like to hear your discussion on the comments and on Facebook and all the social media platforms. And because Lara is the admin person as far as social media is concerned, she will deal with all of that. And I will do my best.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Bye for now, everybody.
Right. Admin, please like, share, subscribe, tell everybody, please. This stuff is important. It will change your life, that is for sure. But for now, from the pair of us, we will speak to you soon.